it's important to take care of self first. There's a certain level of mental health that everyone should be predisposed to remembering that you have to take care of yourself first. And I think for me, I'm better at my career when I am giving back in other ways, right? Whether that is by serving on a board or rolling up my sleeve and getting involved in a certain parish activity, whatever the case may be. I think for me, in order for me to be a better person, I have to be a whole person. And that whole person means that a part of me will always be dedicated to some kind of service.
Welcome to Apostolicam Actuositatem, an interview series on effective apostolic activity for the 21st century. My name is Christopher Pereira. I'm the CEO of Tepeyac Leadership.
I'm Andreas Widmer, Director of the Sioka Center for Principled Entrepreneurship.
And today we are pleased to be interviewing Mike Molina, and we're very interested in seeing how he carries out apostolic activity through his professional life. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you. Nice to be with you.
If you wouldn't, Mike, maybe give us a little background on yourself for our audience so that they know who you are and what it is you do.
Sure. I'm born and raised in Los Angeles, and here in Los Angeles, I have a firm called Molina Consulting. It's a small political consulting and lobbying firm for both the city and the county of Los Angeles. After a career working for the city government itself, I began this firm about 11 years ago, specifically focusing on aviation, airport, LAX, and other Southern California airports to help companies connect themselves to the airport industry. Maybe they're looking to find work within the airport, or maybe they already have a contract with the airport and they want to improve their relationships. So they hire me, and I do what I do best, and that is develop relationships among folks, and I'm happy to do it. So that's what I do as a career. And then my volunteering is just as important to me, of course, as that. And I'm involved in a number of activities in and around the Archdiocese and in my parish. Particularly, I'm president of the Los Angeles chapter of the Catholic Association of Latino Leaders. CALL is a terrific organization that really likes to draw attention not to themselves, but to others in areas of service and in ministry. And I'm just delighted to be part of this organization here in LA that empowers the voice of Latinos in various ways here in Los Angeles.
Have there been waves in your faith life, and if you look back, or have you started and always maintained a strong faith?
I don't remember a time that I necessarily drifted away from the church. Yeah, there were moments maybe in the course of my life that the church, maybe in my young adulthood, early on, that it wasn't as much of an influence. But pretty soon after high school, at 20 years old, I actually felt the bug, a vocation bug. So I entered the Franciscan community for 4 years, and it was a terrific experience. Some of the best 4 years of my life I learned in community. I've had in community, and much of who I am today as a Catholic was grounded in those 4 years. I owe a lot of gratitude to the Franciscans for instilling in me that element of service and giving back. Yeah, but no, I don't think I ever had a real significant wave that others do when it comes to participation in the church.
Everything you do in your entire career has to do with community.
That's absolutely true. And it's deliberate. It's deliberate too. It's part of the commitment I made when I chose to leave the community, that while a consecrated or ordained ministry was not going to be my future, I was still not going to abandon this call to service and this call to give back. So whatever I have done, either professionally or through service, has always tried to answer that call of giving back.
How have you seek to become a successful professional while at the same time trying to influence others for Christ, being an ambassador of the faith?
I think it's being pretty transparent about who I am. While I'm not, while I don't see clients or meet with clients and say, hey, I'm Mike Molina, I'm Catholic, but the reality is it doesn't take too long in a relationship to recognize where there are certain values that I hold important. I'll give you examples. There have been times where prospective clients will call and say, hey, Mike, I was done wrong by this certain contract, by this certain department of this certain city. The reality is, if I can't find the value in representing a certain client that doesn't hold the same kind of values that I do, I don't enter into those types of relationships. And at the same time, my clients know right away that in me, they'll find someone who's honest, sometimes a little too honest, and will provide a track that is based on developing a relationship that is good and sincere and honest and real, rather than trying to be a little bit more, let's just say, conniving or lacking those kinds of virtues that I find very important. So I think in the way I deal with all of my clients, Christopher, it's important for me that they see who I am from the very beginning.
Is it fair to say that you had a political career, right?
I worked at City Hall for a number of years. I worked for 2 members of the Los Angeles City Council. I never held any kind of office. I was always appointed to elected officials' offices. But yeah, there was a fair amount of politics involved in both of those positions. And then I continued my work at the airport, and the same thing happened there. I was in charge of the division that oversaw government affairs. So yeah, politics is a fair part of my career.
I'm asking because, I mean, we talk about apostolic activity and so, but what this comes down to is the renewal of the temporal order, right? Through faith, hope, charity. And I feel that a lot of Catholics today are actually shying away from choosing the career that you've chosen, because there is too much resistance. It's difficult for them to live out their faith in there. But is it really? Because it seems like you have been very successful with it and have found a way to do it. But what's your advice to younger listeners to maybe go into your footsteps and get into government?
To do it. That would be my advice. If there's anything that in many ways, there's no more noble work in service than public service. Public service is an area that I have met wonderful, just, honest, sincere people. Yeah, there are a couple bad apples on the top of the crate that give politics a bad name, and the stories and the persons you usually see in the headlines are the ones who have either been caught in some shenanigan or have instilled an element of fear or the sky is falling type of attitude. But the reality is, people who work in public service day in and day out are wonderful, noble public servants who believe in the work, who believe in giving back. There are many, many similarities, in my opinion, in public service that there is in service in the church, where people are called to give back. And in the city of Los Angeles, for example, there are thousands and thousands of people who do their job every single day to improve the quality of life of the people who live in the city. And that goes from cleaning alleys and fixing sidewalks and trimming trees to protecting through law enforcement and fire department service, to those people who actually work in City Hall in trying to affect legislation and change and policy, all because they believe that they are trying to improve the quality of life of people. So I do have a number of people who come to me, young people, to say, should I even get into that? And I think you realize right away, yeah, like in any company, in any kind of business, there are always a couple that you look at and say, okay, they're kind of suspect. But the vast majority of people who work in and around City Hall are wonderful, dedicated public servants who truly believe in their craft.
I love your outlook on this aspect of, yeah, and I am convinced as well that you can find some bad apples anywhere, but most people are truly trying to do their best. Let me ask you, Mike, you've been very successful in your career, but obviously not without challenges. Can you talk about some challenges that you have encountered as you have tried to be the best apostle, the best ambassador of the faith that you can be in your professional life?
There's constantly that struggle to maintain a level of integrity uh, in the work that I do. I think that there is sometimes the easiest route is not the cleanest route or not the most honest route. I will never take that path. I will take the path, that I'm able to maintain some level of honesty and decency in the work that I do. Uh, I think, though, that clients, elected officials, appointed officials search for that. I think it's, again, a misnomer that politicians are always looking for the easy way or a sinister way. I think Hollywood does a disservice to the industry in labeling or painting those in government as constantly corrupt or looking for a way to make a buck out of it. The reality is the challenges are few because I have, in my career, luckily, met people who have just been extremely honest and extremely sincere in the work that they do. So I would say, outside of the normal challenges of any kind of corporation or building any kind of company, I'm happy to say that what Hollywood presents is not necessarily what I witness day in and day out with working with public servants.
Is there a spirituality that you brought into your work because of that experience?
It's important to take care of self first. There's a certain level of mental health that everyone should be predisposed to remembering that you have to take care of yourself first. And I think for me, I'm better at my career when I am giving back in other ways, right? Whether that is by serving on a board or rolling up my sleeve and getting involved in a certain parish activity, whatever the case may be. I think for me, in order for me to be a better person, I have to be a whole person. And that whole person means that a part of me will always be dedicated to some kind of service. I have found that to be the most fulfilling through the church. And there is no doubt that was instilled in me in my time in community, that a successful person in his or her work has to find also a balance and the ability to give back. And for me, it's been in church, it's been in parish ministry. And, I thank God that was drilled in me early on and that I continue to do today.
Mike, I know you are familiar with the concept of the plan of spiritual life. Can you share for our audience what your day, what your week looks like in terms of how do you integrate your faith life, your devotions, your prayer, the sacraments into your ordinary life in a day, in a week? What does it look like?
I know that my week is based or is begun on on that moment of celebration of union with the Lord, manifested through the gathering of my community. And that's what sustains me during the week. And I try my best to, throughout the week, bring myself back to that experience as a source of strength. And the other things, of course, a daily prayer life is important to me. I like to reflect on the saints of the day and try to glean from that some kind of a message for me. I think the liturgical calendar and the sanctuary calendar are just wonderful keys of providing some kind of a spiritual message, because the saints are just like us, people who made a lot of mistakes, but somehow found within those mistakes a life of virtue and a life that we emulate today. So I begin the day by reading the saint of the day and trying to find something within that continues me throughout the day.
what is a most gifted book from you in the spiritual realm where you say this is something that inspired you and that you like to share with others?
Well, it's interesting. And I know with Christopher's program with Tepeyac, this is an important read for his participants as well. And coming, I'm a Vatican II baby, right? So I was my teeth were being cut in the 60s and 70s, and I remember early on someone recommending the Vatican II documents, right? And there was something about the Constitution of the Sacred Liturgy that as a young adult, I just completely ate up. I mean, there were parts of that document that I read 40 plus years ago that today I will still go back and refer to that document because there's just something grounding and something transformational about that document. You're right. The parts of the liturgy, I think deliberately that there's that mystical element of the celebration that will never be fully understood, but we're still called to it, right? And we're still called to this active participation and this gathering of within the presence of God, whether that is the presence of God in the Word, in the Eucharist, in the presence of the ordained minister, or the congregation, the assembly that surrounds you, that is just so satisfying. And I would certainly recommend anyone who either loves the Sunday liturgy, feels a little frustrated by the Sunday liturgy, to open up that Constitution and carefully and deliberately read it. You may think at the beginning, what is this all about? But eventually you're going to come to a paragraph that speaks to you. It's a powerful document now, almost 60 years old, but it still is alive and important for our worship life than it was when it was promulgated in 1963. It's a great read, and it's something that I would certainly recommend.
Mike, we are running out of time, but I would like to ask you, because I know you understand very well the Second Vatican Council, probably a lot better than the average lay Catholic, and you understand the Church's universal call to holiness, and you live it. How does this fit into your life? What does the universal call to holiness mean to you, and how have you strived to live it as a Catholic professional?
Well, it's all about the journey, isn't it, Christopher? And if you truly embrace the concept of communion of saints, and we have these wonderful examples of saints, either canonized or personal, and I think to my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, who are now part of the heavenly kingdom and serve as constant role models or patron saints, or as the sisters would teach us, guardian angels, right? That continue to be our ambassadors through life. And I think our call to holiness is progressive, and it's not my journey is not what it was when I was 20 or 30, but it is today when I'm 59 years old, and where I'm called to be today and where God wants me to be today. And I think we have to be open to the unpredictability of God's providence and where God sends us. So I think my call to holiness is a journey that will eventually lead me to, to the heavenly kingdom. But I think I got a lot of years left in me before that happens. So in the meantime, you have to be open to the will of God. And I think that probably is the best way to describe this journey, this call to holiness, which is every single day God may place before you what may first seem like an obstacle, but then come to realize it's an opportunity for continued service in ways either professionally or through my own connections or involvement within church ministry, to serve and to be as best a Christian as I possibly can. So that's for me what a call to holiness is to expect the unexpected and receive it as a gift from God, as a growing opportunity. And I try to do that every single day.
Mike Molina, thank you for being with us today. It was a pleasure speaking with you. To our viewers, thank you for joining us. And we ask you to please share, comment, like, and make this video go viral.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was nice spending time with you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you so much. That was very inspirational. And then also thank you, all the viewers watching this. It's a privilege to have your attentions for a few minutes out of your busy day. And we'll see you next time on our podcast. Thank you very much for helping us inspire effective apostolic activity and the lay Catholic professionals in the world.